Welcome, explorers of the past. Today we plunge into one of history's greatest enigmas, Atlantis. Was Plato's lost island a clever allegory, a memory of a cataclysm like Santorini's eruption, or the remnant of a real prehistoric civilization now hidden beneath the waves? In this video, we'll examine Plato's original dialogues, survey purported archaeological clues from Bimini's beach rock to sunken Bronze Age ports, and separate scientific evidence from sensational claims. By the end, you'll understand why Atlantis continues to captivate scholars and dreamers alike, and what modern research really tells us about this legendary realm. If you're ready to dive into myth and science, hit like, subscribe, and let's set sail for Atlantis. Imagine a vast island kingdom, richer than Egypt and more powerful than Libya, disappearing in a single day and night beneath the waves. That is the story Plato tells in his dialogues Timaeus and Critias, written around 360 before Common Era. According to him, his ancestor Solon heard the tale from Egyptian priests at Sais. Atlantis lay beyond the Pillars of Hercules, engaged in a great war with the early Athenians only to be swallowed by the ocean as divine punishment. For over 2 millennia, this account has ignited imaginations. Utopian paradise, advanced technology, doomed empire, all lost beneath the sea. But did Plato invent Atlantis as a moral allegory, or did he record memories of a real civilization? Plato himself never claimed to be a historian. His interest was philosophical, to illustrate the dangers of hubris and to extol ideal governance. In Critias, he describes Atlanteans harnessing metals of every kind, building canals, and erecting a central temple of Poseidon adorned in orichalcomane alloy more precious than gold. The city's concentric rings of water and land, connected by bridges and tunnels, have become a template in later accounts. Yet Plato abruptly breaks off his narrative, and no other ancient writer provides independent confirmation of Atlantis. Even the Greeks who followed him treated the story as legend. During the Roman Empire, writers such as Pliny the Elder and Strabo mentioned Plato's tale, but always with skepticism. Medieval scholars largely ignored Atlantis until the Renaissance, when humanists rediscovered Plato and published Latin translations. The concept took on new life. Could there really have been a sophisticated island nation, obliterated by cataclysm? Cartographers began drawing a phantom landmass in the Atlantic, maps labeled Insula Atlantis appearing alongside. Madeira and the Canary Islands in early 16th century Atlases. Speculation accelerated in the 19th century. In 1859, Ignatius Donnelly's book Atlantis, The Antediluvian World, argued that Atlantis had been the cradle of civilization, responsible for the spread of religion, language, and megalithic architecture across Europe, Africa, and the Americas. Donnelly pointed to correspondences, temple ruins in Greece resembling those in Egypt, pyramid-like mounds in America, similar flood myths worldwide. He saw Atlantis as a lost link. Critics dismissed Donnelly's evidence as superficial. Architectural parallels can arise independently. Myths of destruction crop up in many cultures, and material similarities do not prove single origin. Still, the idea of a vanished empire captivated popular culture. Explorers proposed real locations for Atlantis, off the coast of Spain, in the Caribbean, beneath Antarctica's ice, even in the Pacific. Yet no conclusive archaeological remains, palaces, inscriptions, or distinct Atlantean artifacts have been found in these places. Geological studies show that the mid-Atlantic ridge is volcanic and not part of a sunken continental crust, undermining hypotheses of a massive sunken landmass there. In recent decades, attention turned to the Bronze Age eruption of Thera around 1600 before Common Era. That cataclysm devastated Minoan Crete's maritime civilization. Tsunamis, ash, and climate disturbances followed. Some researchers propose that survivors carried tales of a mighty island swallowed by the sea, morphing into the Atlantis legend over centuries. Archaeological excavations at Archaeology on Santorini reveal an advanced society, multi-story homes, sophisticated plumbing, vibrant frescoes, and a far-flung trade network. But Akrotiri was not destroyed utterly. Its ruins sit preserved beneath volcanic ash and remain visible. The scale of the disaster, though severe, does not match Plato's narrative of entire island eradication in a single night. At the same time, The Doggerland, a land bridge that once connected Britain to continental Europe, submerged gradually by rising sea levels after the last ice age in 1931. Fishermen dredged Stone Age tools and mammoth bones from the North Sea. More recently, seismic surveys have mapped remains of river channels and human settlements beneath the waves, dating to around 5000 before Common Era. But Doggerland flooded over millennia, not in a catastrophic instant, and its inhabitants were Mesolithic hunter-gatherers, not a Bronze Age maritime empire. Nonetheless, the discovery shows how rising seas can erase human footprints from the map. Beyond these plausible analogies, rigorous geoarchaeology yields no trace of a continent-scale civilization matching Plato's description. Core samples from the Atlantic show no evidence of a sudden deposit of city rubble or volcanic ash corresponding to the era. Satellite imagery reveals no submerged stone ruins in the region. While localized sunken towns exist, such as Pavlopetri off Greece, submerged by gradual subsidence around 1000 before Common Era, they are small and unconnected to a mythic empire. Thus, Part 1 demonstrates that the Atlantis story likely combines Plato's philosophical fiction, echoes of real catastrophes like the Thera eruption, and later map-maker flights of fancy. No archaeological smoking gun has surfaced for a sunken Atlantis. Despite the lack of classical evidence, Atlantis theories have proliferated in popular and pseudoscientific literature. One outlandish proposal places Atlantis in Antarctica. In 1950, Charles Hapgood suggested that a sudden pole shift in prehistoric times rotated the Earth's crust, moving a fertile Antarctic continent to a polar wasteland, where it sank into ice-preserving Atlantean ruins beneath the ice sheet. This Earth crust displacement theory, embraced briefly by pseudo-historians, lacks support from geophysics. Pole shifts of such magnitude would leave strong geological signatures, none of which have been found. Ice-penetrating radar surveys by the British Antarctic Survey and NASA show no evidence of drowned megalithic cities under kilometers of ice. Similarly, Edgar Cayce, the sleeping prophet of the early 20th century, predicted that Atlantis would reappear near the Bahamas in 1968 or 1969. Devotees searched the seafloor. They discovered the so-called Bimini Road, an underwater rock formation of limestone blocks, but most geologists classify it as a natural beach rock alignment. Its regularity is illusory, an effect of wave sorting and erosion rather than human construction. Despite the lack of artifacts, pottery shards, tools, or inscriptions, Atlantis buffs still interpret it as Atlantean harbor remains. On the other hand, legitimate archaeological discoveries continue to inform our view of lost societies. In the Indian Ocean, the city of Dwarka, described in the Mahabharata epic as Krishna's splendid capital, lay submerged off the coast of Gujarat. Underwater surveys led by Indian archaeologist S. R. Rao in the 1980s revealed stone structures, pottery fragments, and anchors dating to around 1500 before Common Era. Although debates continue over their precise identification, Dwarka's ruins attest that important coastal cities have indeed been lost to sea level changes and tectonic activity. Likewise, the coastline of southern Turkey has yielded sunken Bronze Age cities like Ura, mentioned in Mari letters of the 18th century before Common Era. Submerged harbors and piers in the Mediterranean illustrate that ancient ports can vanish due to tectonic subsidence or marine inundation. In these cases, however, the cities left behind inscriptions and diagnostic artifacts, unlike the empty Atlantic floor. Such examples underline the key point. True archaeological validation of a civilization requires material culture pottery, tools, structures, and secure stratigraphy. Atlantis, as described by Plato, leaves no such trace. Even if his account merged multiple memories of ancient disasters, the details of orichalcum walls and concentric canals remain his own invention. Why, then, does Atlantis persist? The answer lies partly in human psychology. Lost worlds promise adventure, exoticism, and the thrill of discovery. The very absence of evidence becomes a lure. They must have found and hidden it. Conspiratorial thinkers assert that mainstream academia suppresses proof to protect orthodox history. Yet scholarly research thrives on discoveries that overturn established narratives, so if incontrovertible evidence for Atlantis surfaced, Archaeologists would celebrate it, not ban it. Moreover, Atlantis has become a powerful metaphor for environmental hubris. Writers like Ernest Hemingway and Joseph Campbell used it to warn of humanity's tendency to overreach, plunder resources, and ignore ecological limits, a timeless lesson. In modern fiction, from Jules Verne's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea to Disney's Atlantis, The Lost Empire, the story resonates because it speaks to both curiosity and caution. Today, interdisciplinary research offers the best tools to evaluate the Atlantis legend. Classical scholars carefully analyze Plato's text, noting that he wrote Timaeus and Critias as dialogues exploring ideal regimes, not as journals of exploration. His precise dates 9,000 years before Solon stretch credibility even for an ancient writer, likely serving rhetorical effect rather than historical record. Geologists study sea level curves, isostatic rebound, and tectonic subsidence to chart coastlines over millennia. Models show that Mediterranean sea levels rose by tens of meters at the end of the last ice age, flooding river valleys but not submerging entire islands of continental crust. Tsunamis from Thera would have reached coastal cities, yet leave sediment signatures detectable in core samples. These deposits align with regional impacts but do not support wholesale island collapse beyond Santorini itself. Marine archaeologists map sunken landscapes using side-scan sonar, sub-bottom profilers, and remotely operated vehicles. In the Atlantic, surveys for cable routes cross areas once imagined as Atlantis. They find seabed sand waves, basalt outcrops, and marine life nothing resembling human constructions. Continental shelves host stone tools from Paleolithic hunter-gatherers, but no Bronze Age megaliths. At the same time, scholars explore real vanished worlds. The Maya of Central America saw cities like Tikal and Palenque rise and fall, aggrandized temples reclaimed by jungle. Indus Valley sites such as Dwarka show how sea level rise can drown ports. Even near Iceland, Norse settlements are preserved under layers of volcanic ash at El Anso. Meadows in Newfoundland proof that entire societies can vanish from historical memory yet leave archaeological fingerprints. For Plato's Atlantis to be more than a thought experiment, comparable evidence would be needed: inscriptions in a known language, unique artifacts betraying Atlantean origin, clear architectural remains. Absent those, Atlantis remains a compelling parable. We can draw inspiration from it: cautionary tales of ecological collapse, reminders of civilizations lost to natural forces, but not claim it as literal history. Yet the search continues in unexpected ways. Some scientists examine oral traditions, indigenous flood myths in Australia, African legends of sunken cities, and compare them with geological data, looking for patterns of regional inundation. Others revisit Mediterranean sites, seeking traces of volcanic tsunamis beyond Santorini. Advances in DNA analysis might one day reveal population movements tied to ancient disasters, shedding light on migrations that inspired legends. In the final analysis, Atlantis endures not because of hidden ruins, but because it speaks to universal human concerns: our relationship with nature, the rise and fall of power, the fragility of paradise. Archaeology teaches us to ask hard questions, to welcome data that challenge cherished beliefs, and to appreciate that truth sometimes lies not in sensational discovery, but in intricate detective work across disciplines. So, is Atlantis myth or forgotten civilization? Evidence says myth, but with echoes of real cataclysms woven into cultural memory. And in exploring Atlantis, we glimpse both the power of ancient storytelling and the rigor of modern science, united in our endless quest to understand the past.